We have different layered and tiers of opposition and oppositions against us. This isn't boogeymanism. This is a conspiracyism. If you think so, nigga, wake your ass up. Before it's too late, it's reality.
Reality. Devil at work, but I'm in God's plan. It's revolution when a God is holding God's hand. Cotton stocks and try to be the top brand. Brooklyn Reserve, come get it off the block, man. Entrepreneur shit, about to get me more chips. Blackamoor, my sovereignty made me more rich. Indigenous to this whole shit, whole list. 4/5, in the name of freedom, get the whole clip. Niggas hungry, they looking for a meal. Customs coming through and they looking for a deal. You controlled by the game or toes down on your heels. You a nigga in the house or you a nigga in the field. Prison getting killed, confined to hard times, but the mind's designed to rise like it's high tide. Higher consonants, portals like a sci-fi. High five, defeating poverty on my time. Curse broken, my daughters live a good life. Now let's be a good man to a good wife. Start a good plan, get out the hood life. Families mourning cause enemies had a good night. Good night. You ain't awoke if you don't, then Jim Crow. These times don't look alike. Come on, look at Mike Brown, not Jackson, even though a different enemy took his life. I saw a change and the shit start looking right. Remember that cellar I had was a book at night. Take me far away like I just took a flight back to reality to open my book and write. The world's going up in flames, shit burning. Politicians got some people up like a furnace. Media tell lies like they got a purpose, but the truth always makes its way to the surface. 100 years now, can we take some new steps? You X'd out common sense for a blue check. Add to some new breasts, designing new shit. Watching your homie shot dead on a news clip. Don't wanna preach to you, just wanna speak to you. Don't let material shit just weaken you. The force is deep in you. Like Luke, if you could bang for the streets, then for the cause would you shoot? Solar Huey Newton, a little Tukey in him. Like Kevin and Nubia, we need a new reunion, a brand new solution. And don't broadcast how we move, straight to the point like Kyrie shooting. A fist for this Black Power movement. Let me get a Black Power for Black Power music. Drums of war, Shango's acoustic, Play-Doh beats. That's how we do this.
And a lot of people, the killings are not going to stop. Institutional racism is still going to be here. The conveyor belt of systemic and institutional racism and how it relates to black people will still be in full effect. So unless we start to plan and intercept that with strategy, with a freedom of death mentality, with an interpersonal greatness to counter the interpersonal racist views many of them have in their minds against us, drop the ball, we can win in the fourth quarter.
Shout out to Brother Jack Kim for that powerful track. Sankofa. And as you can see on the screen, is none other than my big brother Sankofa. It's always a pleasure. He's back in his house, ready to drop it. I could tell just by the title that it's going to be fiery. Before we get into that, I would like to give a powerful shout and condolence to our powerful sister and queen, activist, actor, so many powerful things. This sister, Miss Sister Cicely Tyson, who has made her transcendence. She is now in power with the rest of the ancestors, and we love you, sister, so much. You will never be forgotten. 97 years strong.
Wow.
Powerful life. All the
Beautiful.
positive movies that you put in by way of the Caribbean. Shout out to our beautiful black people in the Caribbean producing another giant.
That's right.
And to Harlem too. I can't forget to Harlem produced them giants where she resided at. She definitely is a Harlemite at the same time. And with that being said, Brother Sankofa, I'm going to shut my mouth now and turn the mic over to you.
Bomb. Yes, peace, love, and light to the family out there. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedule on a Friday of all days this evening to tune in to your brother Sankofa, definitely representing Baba TV, representing the community, representing Black Power, militant, intelligent, and articulateness to the fullest. And it's a pleasure and honor to once again be before the screen in the lens of the great, almighty big brother, Baba. And I want to thank you all for tuning in once again. And, you know, we want to cover some ground on some very critically important subject matters, all tied into the dynamic of the self-destructive culture that is so popular and prevalent amongst our communities that is producing a lot of the youth that are becoming more aspiring, thoughts, gang members, you know what I'm saying? Drug dealers and everything that is geared towards our self-destruction and our demise. So we want to cover a subject today. The subject matter, or the name of the topic rather, is Ghettocidal. Ghettocidal, topic I chose, Ghettocidal. The subtitle is entitled The Mass Production of the Nigger Mentality, right? Ghettocidal. See, now you have the word ghetto and you have cidal. First of all, cidal. Cidal is a suffix, all right, that indicates killing, like bactericidal. You know what I mean? Which is an actual term.
Sankofa, I hate to stop you, but you're loud and clear, but it's a little choppy. Is there any way you can move? Is there a wire or something there? A couple of the family is in the chat room saying you a little bit choppy.
I'm not sure.
Now you clear. I don't even hear that no more. I don't know what you just did.
Okay, me either. The spirit moved me. That's the ancestors. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see nothing indicating that I was chopping up. Am I still clear? And I want to apologize to the family for that.
It was the audio, not the visual. You were choppy a little bit in the audio. You good now?
Yeah, I know the audio. I didn't, see anything that I can do to. So whatever I just did, long as it worked, that's dope. Yes, we're gonna continue on.
Let's go.
Okay, so as I was saying, cidal. Like in the term homicidal, you have genocidal, homicidal, suicidal. I came up with the term ghettocidal. That's right, ghettocidal. First of all, the term cidal is a suffix that is indicative of killing, like bactericidal, and you know what I'm saying, something capable of killing bacteria. So cidal means something destructive or something that is an agent of killing. I came up with the term ghettocidal, right? Because what's ghetto? Ghetto comes from, it's derived from the Venetian verb gettare, you know what I'm saying, which means to cast or to pour out, you know what I mean? So ghettocidal, meaning like the way you have something or some entities that are homicidal, or people or individuals that may be suicidal, right? Or genocidal. I came up with the term ghettocidal, meaning our self-destruction. So we want to cover some ground on, you know what I mean, why that is so popular amongst our people. What I mean, why it's popularized to the point where a lot of us have a bloodlust for self-destruction and a strong attraction, you know what I'm saying, to the negative lifestyle, and even an addiction to the self-destructive subculture that we see prevalent in our community. So we want to just tackle some, you know what I mean, some areas of critical relevance that is pertinent to that subject matter and put it in perspective, you know what I mean? And once again, I want to thank the family for tuning in. It's Friday evening. You can be doing anything else. You could be somewhere watching Netflix, you know what I mean? You could be somewhere out doing anything else, but you're tuning in right now on Baba TV to your brother Sankofa. So definitely intend to make this engagement worth your time. So once again, thank you to the viewership for tuning in. Thank you, Baba TV, for hosting me. And basically, let's go. Any questions you have, Bob, you can definitely chime in. You know what I mean? And we can go from here.
The only
right?
thing I got one request: move a little closer to the mic. Cause when you did,
there's no mic on this camera. Okay, but I'm gonna come a little closer to the screen.
To the screen, yeah.
All right. I need to get me a mic though. You right?
Now you clear, loud and clear. Okay, not
loud and clear.
You good. We want this to be clear.
Oh, we definitely do. Hey, and before I even get into this, right? Damn, I hope it's not true. You know, busy day today. Got up early. I've been out like since 3 in the morning, up working out. Went to work, handling my business and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And you know, getting all the little trending news. I didn't really get a chance to go in and really do any extensive investigation of how true it is. But with the T.I. situation, you know what I mean? Have you heard anything going on? You heard about what's going on with him, Brother Baba? And his wife, T.I. and his wife
No.
supposedly involved with some kind of sex trafficking drama or something like that. I have a lot of admiration for the brother Ti. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things he's contributed to the culture and just in general with things that he's contributed to the community. You know what I'm saying? So, I just hope I want to do my little research on that and really dig in. I didn't do enough to really speak on it. You know what
Right.
I mean? Or give really a broad perspective on it. But it's something that's trending and everybody keeps talking about right now. Definitely, I hope it's not true. That's one of the dudes that I have a lot of respect and admiration for in the game and in the culture. So you know what I mean. I'll be tuning in to that, just seeing what's going on with that, man. You know what I'm saying. But definitely, and besides that, also, you know what I'm saying. I want to let the people know. Me and Baba is going to be on the ground in Boston, Mass, very soon. So
Hmm.
definitely be on the lookout for that. We're going to cover a lot of ground and bring some great luminaries before the lens as well. You know what I'm saying? Other teachers, other personalities, other brothers and sisters who are very talented, articulate, revolutionary, and definitely pro-actionary. You know what I'm saying? They drop their sciences and their schools of thought to the people. You know what I'm saying? And we need all of that. You know why? Because we're in very, very, very critical times. You know what I mean? And critical times call for solution orientation, answers, you know what I'm saying, and blueprints, you know what I mean, and that enables others to become empowered to deal with the critical issues at hand. So definitely, you know what I'm saying, be tuned for when we hit Boston and just always, you know what I'm saying, always study. That's how you stay dangerous. Study, research, stay tuning in, stay learning, and stay observing. These are some very critical times that we're in, family, and being on point and being keen and being focused and having an objective and a blueprint for greatness in life is how you're going to combat a lot of things on a lot of levels, just even on a personal level. You know what I mean? So here we go with the Ghettocidal. So, we want some information I had got a little early. I didn't get a chance to really put it together right there. So I can't screen share, but I'm gonna look up something that is or show you something that I actually put together that is pertinent to the subject at hand, and it's pertaining to the black on black crime trend, which ties directly into the subject matter at hand. Okay, because we want to look at what we see so prevalent in our communities as far as the self-destructiveness that you see plaguing us as communities all across the United States of America. We want to ask ourselves, we know that this is what's going on. We know that this is real. We know that this is stuff that we're seeing in real time that is affecting us. Our family, friends, loved ones, all of us have been affected some way, shape, form, and fashion by the crime, the murder, the self-destruction, and those different types of elements that have been plaguing our communities for so long. But a lot of times we don't look at deep enough the underlying factors to what causes these different these situations and these social ills that you see plaguing us in our communities. A lot of times, you know what I mean, we don't go into the root of the problem. We just stuck on dealing with the branch of the problem. The branch of the problem is that which you see us being affected by so much in our communities. You know what I mean? But let's go into, because a lot of us can talk, well, see, the enemy put drugs in the community and they set us up for it. This is all true. This is all definitely a fact, but put it in its proper perspective. And what I mean by that is understanding why they're doing it, how they do it, and how they get us so much in our youth to buy into the self-destructive culture. You know what I'm saying? Ghettocidal, in other words, is things that we need to evaluate for the sole purpose of having a broader scope of understanding and insight to better be able to come up with or blueprint solution orientations that counter and offset and undermine the objectives and agendas that are by design geared towards to eliminate us, okay, that have become popular amongst us, okay? So I want to show you something right here. And this is from the site actually that I got this from off of is from the Harvard Kennedy School, www.hks Harvard edu. Okay, and it's talking about this. I'm gonna go right here to this part right here. I'm gonna just read it to the people. I didn't get a chance to really put nothing together. Had a long, very busy day, long week in general. So just bear with my brother, okay? Because I'm gonna definitely just bring the information out regardless, okay? I said, so between 1980 and 2008, Blacks were disproportionately represented as both homicide victims and offenders. Cooper Smith, 211, which is the source. The homicide victimization rate for Blacks, which 27.8 per 100,000 people, okay, was 6 times higher than the rate for whites, which was 4.5 per 1,000, figure 1. Okay, Blacks accounted for slightly more than 51% of all gun homicide victims between 1980 and 2008, 28-year span. The U.S. population of, okay, hold on, excuse me. Okay, yeah, boom, let me skip around a little to get to the points, okay, because it's a lot. I don't want to read everything. The extremely high homicide victimization and offending rates for young Black males in the early 1990s has been tied to gun violence epidemics, tipped off by the initiation of crack cocaine sales in most USA cities during the late 1980s. Blumstein, 1995, Braga, 2003, Cork, 1999, giving you the sources. Although the intensity of Black homicide rates has changed over the last century, the persistence of the black-white homicide rate gap has not. Hawkins, 1999. Criminologists have long considered the reasons for observed racial disparities in violence have put forth a variety of explanations, including individual factors, most notably IQ and self-control, family, socialization, subculture of violence, and economic deprivation theories. C. E. G. Wilson and Herrstein, 1985, source. Unfortunately, okay, so basically I just wanted to cover some ground, and just as far as the homicide rates, and you see them skyrocketing at a point in history. You know, here in America, Blacks have already had a hellified history here. From the way we came into this country to the laws that governed us in this country that didn't give us citizenship rights, the right to marry, to da-da-da-da, all these different things we already know. I'm not going to go into all of that because I'm going to just want to jump into the point. But we know that our history here in America has always been one of detriment, despair, oppression, and a fight for liberation against oppression. You know what I'm saying? But we've seen something uniquely different start to happen in our communities in between the late 60s, really. That's when it really started to pick up. When Richard Nixon declared a war on drugs, shit, that's when it seemed like the drugs popped up in the community. That's when it seemed like heroin and on another level. It was there in pockets and in spurts. We have always had our issues in the communities, but that's what it seemed like. You know what I'm saying? It just popped up like on a whole nother level. And this is a time when civil rights, Black power movements, and you know what I'm saying, we're rising up, and different organizations and groups and movements for social justice, rights, and equality were popping up. Around that time, you started to see the drugs pop up in the community, Section 8 pop up in the community, welfare, you know what I'm saying, which were programs, welfare and Section 8, and even public housing that initially were created for poor white immigrants, especially around the time of World War II. How did we become the main majority of people in the housing developments and in blighting, poor, disenfranchised ghettos, right? That many of these neighborhoods weren't poor and disenfranchised. And many of these enclaves that we see as historic Black communities, right, didn't always, can you hear me, Claire?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. You know, didn't always have this epidemic, didn't always have these kinds of issues, and if they did, not onto the same magnitude that you see in every major city, especially where there's Black, Latino, some poor whites, but predominantly Black areas all across the country. How did this happen? Why did this happen? What was the agenda behind it, if any? And who was to benefit from this? And what would be the detriments of the people subjected to this? Is the things that we need to cover in order to have a broad scope understanding of the fact that not only are we in a serious critical time and situation in our communities, but how, in order to be able to assess and therefore analyze from a broader scope of understanding and be able to devise critical plans to meet the critical situations that we are facing. We got to cover ground on all of these different things. All right. So now, when I just read from you from what I got out of the Kennedy Harvard Law School, it was going over and showing you a lot of different sources of when the crack started to really, when crack really hit the Black communities. I mean, we had crimes in our communities. Like I said, it seemed like when Richard Nixon declared a war on drugs in the late 1960s, that's when drugs started to pop up more and more on the streets during the times of the Vietnam War. A lot of the people coming back with drug addictions and stuff like that. You had a lot more weapons getting on the streets, not like it was later in the 80s during Reaganomics time, but it's all connected. You know what I mean? And it's all tied into the fact of what ghettocidal is, how it destroys us, who created it, and why we are so attracted to our own self-destruction. You know what I mean? So when crack hit the streets, we got to ask ourselves, what is crack? Where did it come from? It's rhetorical. We know what crack is. We many of our families and some people in our communities, or people that we know in our families, or people that we know in their families, have been definitely affected by these by crack cocaine. You know what I'm saying? Even up to this day, there's some people just coming home or just came home a couple of years ago that did a lot of time because they got caught up in the crack epidemic. You know what I'm saying? Where did crack come from? How did it get here? How did it pop up in every American city, large city, where there was a highly populated Black enclaves, the way that it did in a country that is one of the most protected, has one of the best, and has some of the best intelligence agencies, right? Homeland Security, Coast Guard, CIA, FBI. You know what I'm saying? They got radars that can pick up just about anything coming into, you know what I'm saying, this country and its borders. How, you have to ask, did crack just end up on the streets of every urban American enclave, where it's predominantly Black, and then ravish our communities the way that it did? You know what I'm saying? Well, we have to answer that by being honest. That's first and foremost. And to be honest and to put it in proper perspective and truth is that the fact that it was put here by certain government intelligence agencies for the purpose of destroying its unwanted eaters and the undesirable elements of its nation in the communities that they were in. You see what I'm saying? Fratricidal homicide at the rate that you see it at in the community wasn't like that. That's why you notice the number started from 1980 to 2008. And we know that from 2008 up to now, which was 13 years ago, 2021, a lot more has occurred. These are some of the more recent figures, and I'm sure upon further examination on your own, always do your own homework, people, research it, you'll see that the trend and that the numbers are even higher. Over 30,000 people, Black people, have died at the hands of other Black people because of Black on Black crime, which is a war amongst us, but that was orchestrated outside of us, outside of just us and our community. Other communities, intelligent apparatuses are directly responsible for the war that we have been waging on ourselves in our communities over the last 30 plus years throughout the crack epidemic. And then with that has come a subculture, right? of self-destruction, and not just self-destruction. We know our communities have been violent for a long time, but we're dealing with a generation now, right? It was violent in your time growing up, Baba. You from DC, Mean Streets of DC, off the chain.
Yeah.
It was wild in my time as a young kid in the early 80s, right before crack hit, late 70s, early 80s. But then we started to see something real different in the communities around the mid 80s, going into the late 80s, into the early 90s. And then just certain legislation that followed after that, and executive orders that were signed that helped to, I like to say, re-enslave us, not just incarcerate us, but re-enslave us, considering the 13th Amendment. And what that said is why I said re-enslave us. The 13th Amendment, quick sidebar that's relevant to the point though, the 13th Amendment said this. It basically was a law that were mandated, you know what I'm saying? Amendment that was implemented. Amendment needs to add on to something, to a legislation or a law or something like that in the Constitution. So what it was it outlawed slavery, legal slavery, or forceful servitude was outlawed, unless, there's the unless factor now, unless a person is convicted of a violent crime, or convicted of a crime or a felony. It doesn't have to necessarily be violent, but convicted of a crime. It was at that point when the 13th Amendment in the 1860s, right, came into effect, that Black people have become more criminalized in America. Prior to that, you was just chattel, you was just property, you know what I'm saying? You was just auctioned off. But it was after that, after you were no longer needed, or you could no longer be used, right? Even though we had sharecropping and other forms of underground slavery going on, that's another topic for another day. But according to what the law had passed, the 13th Amendment was a law that basically said it outlawed slavery unless the person or the people, right? And specifically that law was specific for Black people, the 13th Amendment. There's actually a video on Netflix, came out a couple of years ago, called the 13th. I believe it's called 13th. Y'all should definitely, family, if you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. And if you have checked it out before, man, brush up on some of that old information and check it out again, because you'll see the more little fine-tuned information or highlights that you may have forgotten that you can put in perspective and get out of that, that you can extrapolate out of that. It's very important. It was at that point that the 13th Amendment, where in order to re-enslave Blacks, or to get the people who were brought here not to be equal to whites, not to have equality, not to share power, this is how they see it, could be legally re-enslaved by something that was outlawed. So it was made illegal, but how do you legalize it? You criminalize the former slave. And that's what the 13th Amendment was. And ever since then, from the earliest times in America, you can see Black folks being criminalized, being made to look like pickaninnies, subhuman caricatures, you know what I'm saying, that represented vagrancies, villains, ruffians. Yes, ruffians is a word, like a bully or a notorious person, or a person who's just looking for violent, or that's criminal-minded, criminally oriented minded. You know what I'm saying? The campaign to imbue this image into the minds of the social fiber of the American public definitely started and took an uptick at that point from the late 1800s, and it's only accelerated from that point on. A lot of our people like to call themselves goons even. Look at especially this generation of the millennials and the generation after that we're in now, is one of the most lost generations. And I don't say this to downplay or put my people down in this generation, because I love y'all. We have some of the most strongest, some of the most creative, some of the most articulate, some of the most warrior-minded sisters and brothers in this generation. And that's why they're being targeted for self-destruction, but in a way where it's made popularized and enticing to them to want to be attracted to lifestyles that are destructive to them, because they see the power and the capability that you possess. The opposition knows the times that we are in. The opposition knows exactly, because they study sociology, study psychology, and they study a lot of different dynamics as it relates to people, politics, and populations, and trends that people go to. especially if they're acquiring wealth or they have a collective objective and agenda as a people. You know what I'm saying? There are certain trends that they can dictate in 5 years now, the political or financial, economic, what have you, forecast of these people sociologically can forecast and dictate that. So when they see the creativity and the capability, and always have in every generation that we've exhibited, make no mistake, the opposition has always seen that and has always conspired to have a counter plan in place that is effective. And this is not conspiracy theorism. And the reason why I say that, because a lot of people, that's conspiracy. The information is out there. I don't know what rock some niggas been under. I don't know if it was a crack rock, a bed rock, or what, but you've been under some kind of rock if you don't know this. And I can't rock with you if you think it's just conspiracy, because you're not rocking with research, okay? So now, do your own research if that is just conspiratorial to you. You know what I mean? Just because it's not popular truth doesn't mean it's not truth. Again, just because it's not popular truth doesn't mean it's not truth. In fact, the truth is not popular. Okay? The truth is often concealed, marginalized, minimized. Okay? The truth is often marginalized and minimized. It's not popularized. Okay? So always keep that in mind. This generation, one of the most lost generations that have been produced from our community for many different factors. And that's why they are so ghettocidal, homicidal, suicidal, genocidal towards each other. You see what I'm saying? This is one of the generations that we have. Hip hop, for instance, our music have been weaponized against us. We talked about this the last time I was on Baba. Those that know where I'm coming from. Those that don't, or skeptical intellects, I respect that, but listen up and check it out. You see what I'm saying? Our music has been weaponized against us for the sole purpose of perpetuating and popularizing and glamorizing and sensationalizing the lifestyles that and the traditions that represent the destructive conditions that we are in. You know what I'm saying? To make it enticing to our people for wealth, for popularity, for fame, and for a way out of the ghetto and a lot of the conditions in which we are in. And we all know that the first law of nature is self-preservation. You see what I'm saying? But one thing about hip hop is we always had at one time, the opposition came up with a stratagem to counteract that. We had consciousness in the music. When I say consciousness, it was balanced with the street hardcore realness, content and context within the lyrics. It was talking about real stuff in the hood, real shit that was going down in the hood, right? But it always had a gem or a jewel or a point of, not always, but many a times, and it was balanced out. So you had the street rap, you had the party rap, you had the fun time rap, you had the battle rap, you had the, you know what I'm saying? And then you had the conscious rap. Hip hop, what made hip hop so unique and powerful and inspirational and attractive was the fact that it was so versatile. It was balanced. It had so much. Hip hop is made of different dynamics and elements, from graffiti to DJing to breakdancing to the lyrics to the fashion. Hip hop is a composite of all of these different dynamics. You know what I'm saying? It was considered a fad at once, but when certain Jews in high places and in power in the music industry, right, started to see that, okay, we on to something here. These people, and they had a voice. You had your Lakim Shabazz, your Queen Latifahs, your Brand Nubians, your KRS-Ones, your Rock Films. You had your people dropping heavy gems back then. And this was in the time of the crack era. This was in the time of the crack era. You had Public Enemy, the S1W, shout out to Professor Griff. You had this that was going on in one of the most critical and most dangerous and worst times in the history of our people's sojourn here, which was the crack era. But in that time, you had a balance within the music that gave understanding, that gave a perspective, and that gave a broader scope analysis of the conditions that we were in. There wasn't just relishing it and acting like blind sheep that was deep asleep. There was a balance. This is critical, wild times too. There was a connection with many of the Black leadership in hip hop, specifically, in much respect to the great honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who's always been a person who has been a big brother and almost like a father, community-wise speaking, and elder-wise to the community, especially the community of hip-hoppers. From squashing beats to having people sit down and break bread with them, to having rappers mention the Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, another one who was popular amongst many rappers and many of our entertainers and different celebrities in different aspects of entertainment. We're in a generation where not only has the music have been compromised and weaponized against us to make us glorify the ghettocidal attitudes and behaviors that are self-destructive to us, but a lot of the leadership is not there no more. Some of them are not here no more. Shout out to Farrakhan once again. He's getting a lot older. It's a new generation who are kind of becoming a little bit detached. A lot, excuse me, I said a little bit. A lot of it under exaggerated. You know what I'm saying? There's a separation from that kind of leadership where it existed. Not all were connected to him, but that element was there. You don't really see that like that. You know what I'm saying? And the message is not there like that. And the music is not as balanced and multiplicated as it was, and versatile as it was. B-boy rap, street rap, party rap, fun rap, and you had the consciousness. So you had a lot of different reggae hip hop. You had so many different elements of it. Now what you kind of hear now is this, and shout out to my people out there that are real lyricists, that is real hip hop, that is spitting lyrics, and that is doing their thing, man, because y'all definitely out there. I'm speaking about and highlighting where it pertains to and why it's so prevalent and why this is more popular than a lot of y'all real talented heads out there doing your thing that ain't getting enough shine like you should. Shout out to Jock Kim once again. On that note, but we're going to make it. We're going to make it. You know what I'm saying? Because truth is going to become more popular because we're going to keep pushing that envelope. You know what I'm saying? But it was no longer a multiplicity type thing. It's more one-dimensional. And the one-dimensionality of what we see more prevalent on the airwaves, mainstream media, is what? And it's still creativity because we're a creative people. But it's like fire. You could use fire to be a chef, or you could use fire to be an arson. You know what I'm saying? You can use fire to cook, or you can use fire to burn down a damn house. Fire is fire. Our talent is talent. But however, a lot of our talent has been strategically being used to be weaponized towards our own demise. One thing that is very powerful, and that people that know who are in power, especially in certain levels of being record execs, they understand different levels of psychology of demographics. They understand the psychology of different groups that or demographic to extents that they're trying to market to. Okay, so there's a certain kind of sound. That's why they would have, you know what I'm saying, the urban, you know what I'm saying, the urban branch of certain record labels, because they knew, okay, this would sell. Used to call it the Chitlin circuit, and some of them. This would be marketed to this demographic because we know that this will sell by this way because we've studied the trend and we studied it. So a lot of the times they already know, okay, conscious hip hop with the voice and the message that it has can have an impact, and it's always been a threat. One of the biggest threats of America, like George, shout out to George Jackson. Like George Jackson said, one of the biggest threats of America is the black criminal becoming a black revolutionary. He said that in the book Blood in My Eye. If you haven't checked out that book, family, definitely check it out. In the book Blood in My Eye, R.I.P. to the brother resting in power with the great ancestors, one of my favorite ancestors, George Jackson. George Jackson said this: one of the greatest threats and fears of the system is for the black criminal mind to become a black revolutionary mind. And this holds true to this day. You know what I'm saying? And it's always been campaigns, movement, covert and stealth operations in effect to make sure that truth is kept from you, power is kept from you, and the access of things that are self-destructive to us are always there to be prevalent and available and rewarded. So that way it would inspire many more of us to partake in something that is not beneficial to the community, beneficial to the individual, yet destructive to the whole. Beneficial to the individual, individuals, a group, but destructive collectively to the whole. So what they did was they weeded out that balance of hip hop with different varieties of messages that was being conveyed to the people to give them different, you know what I'm saying, aspects of the culture and the music. That's what hip hop was. To becoming more degenerate, self-destructive, materialistic, thought-oriented, and even a homosexual agenda, which you're going to see a lot more being promoted and perpetuated. You can count on that. You can count on that, especially with your Uncle Joe, for the coons out there, especially for the legislation, executive orders that Uncle Joe Biden have passed, empowering a lot more of the transvestite, transgender, LGBTQ, and whatever other letters they added to it, you know what I'm saying, type of agenda, you know what I'm saying, to empower them. So you're going to see a lot more of that more prevalent in hip hop too. My point is this. We don't control that which we are the center of as far as creative, being the creative forefront of hip hop, entertainment. Hip hop is, I think, or music in general is one of the, because America's two biggest exports is you know, entertainment, music, you know what I'm saying? So music being one of America's biggest export, and hip hop being one of the biggest music genres in the world, because it's international. It's an internationally powerful genre of music. You know what I'm saying? It has influence around the globe, right? Because that's the biggest export. You know what I'm saying? And we are at the center of that. We created hip hop. Our culture reflects hip hop. When people control the majority of the narrative or perpetuate only an element or certain segments of our communities, you know what I'm saying, and put that on the international stage as being, you know, predominantly, you know what I'm saying, represented for the culture as a whole, the world is seeing this. So not only are we being criminalized and it's being marketed to us that this is popular, this is what's popping, this is what you should partake in, because this can make you famous, rich, have all the things that you don't have in the condition that you're in now, by talking about relishing and glorifying the negativity that you see prevalent in your community that's destroying you, ghettocidal. You know what I'm saying? Partake of in these things. The world is seeing that. So there's many people around the world who have never even met a black man, especially an African American, right? But their perception of us is that they're criminal, the women are whores. And these are the narratives that were perpetuated about us since the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment. So it's just only been reinforced, and with the advent of media, television, print, billboards, you know what I mean? It's only been just more perpetuated. And within the perpetuation of that, a lot of us have internalized these concepts, these ideas, these images, and we have bought into it. Not to say that there's not crime in our community, but to understand how the criminal element, the way that it did, became so prevalent in our community, can definitely be broken down. Nonetheless, you know what I'm saying? Others are capitalizing off of our struggles, off of our pains, and off of our destruction, and perpetuating us to the world as being the goon. What is a goon? A goon is a 19th century, a 19th century, I think it was a mid 19th century concept, okay, of was it Goonie Booby is influenced by, is a so-called, like, it's a subhuman caricature that was influenced, that, you know what I'm saying, that was created by Alice. It was a person by the name, Alice the Goon. That was the name of the person, and that concept was created by E.C. Seeger in 1894. You know what I'm saying? So the terms that we even use to internalize about ourselves. I'm a goon. If you look up what a goon is, you wouldn't call yourself a goon. There's a time when in our communities, right? Even in the hood, being a G at a certain time. Because like I said, in our communities, the will to survive and doing what we had to do was always a social reality because of the social dynamics that were stacked against us. And we all know that the first law of nature is self-preservation. So many people, especially in the turn of the centuries, in the early 1900s into the 1940s, a lot of Black people, got into things that were illicit type of activities. Why? To sustain themselves, because they weren't allowed. The American social order was this, and it was blatantly in your face then. You couldn't get hired in certain places. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't easy for you to buy and own property, even though we still managed and strived and thrived as a people then. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have access to certain institutions in a system to make us progressive the way others did. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people turned to prostitution. A lot of our sisters, you had a lot of madams, especially coming up from the South up to the North, Midwest, and different areas, the West Coast, you know what I mean, doing what they had to do to survive. You know what I'm saying? Did what they had to do. Some people turned to drug addiction or alcoholism because of the stress of dealing with the social realities that they were dealing with. Some other people turned to, you know what I'm saying, predators in their own community and capitalized off of the misery of other people. So they became pimps and hustlers. You know what I mean? These are things that not normally people don't do. People don't really usually just want to put themselves in a situation where they have to risk their life daily, or, you know what I'm saying, put themselves in potentially harm's way just to survive. These are things that we've adapted to, predicated on the fact that we are a part of a system that has been socially engineered a certain way, that has produced conditions that have become popularized traditions and subcultures amongst us that we relish to this day. It's ghettocidal. So a lot of people, but even back in those days when people had to turn to lifestyles that were illicit to sustain themselves, because the first law of nature is self-preservation, even in the 1960s, 70s, there was a level of class that a G had amongst them. Look at the types of Bumpy Johnson, for instance, who they said did a lot in his community. Even though he did a lot that contributed to the destructive mechanisms, he also did a lot that contributed to helping a lot of people in the community. You see what I'm saying? From what I hear from old school Harlemites and just from our old research, you know what I mean? Mom and pop store struggling, and not just Bumpy Johnson. This was just a lot of mannerisms, savoir-faire, gentlemanism that a real G once had, class and all that. That was part that went hand in hand at one time, where even if you was a criminal, went hand in hand. You wasn't just a savage, just ghettocidal, and didn't have the goon mentality. Goon basically is brain or muscle with no brain. You basically a damn crash dummy or an expendable. But see, a G at a certain time has class, savoir-faire, style, and he did certain things in the community. Maybe felt like to right his wrongs, or I'm giving back. So with the wrong that I do, there was a certain level of consciousness, even that a goon had back in that time, that you don't see now. Your mom and pop store struggling, about to go out of business, they lend him that bread. I used to hear stuff like that about Bumpy Johnson. You know what I'm saying? Had Malcolm X's back up at one time, for certain things. It's another topic. But, nowadays we got a lot of people with the goon mentality. There's no respect amongst the elders. There was a time when, older lady walking down the street, you know what I'm saying? People were kind of laid back a little bit, or the sisters walking by. You know what I'm saying? Even in my generation, I guess I caught the tail end of that era. It started to get a little bit more savage, me coming up in my years. You know what I'm saying? But there was a time where it was like that, you know what I mean? Where people had a lot more respect in the community. There was actually maybe some honor among some thieves at that time. But we live in a generation that is the worst generation for a lot of reasons. They're more detached from a lot of the consciousness, even with the advent of social media and so many different conscious platforms that are out there. On a scale of what we're contributing, and we must continue to contribute and honor ourselves and commend ourselves for being contributors to breaking the mental shackles, but the opposition, the mainstream, the resources, and the influence they have by far eclipses the influence that we have, especially on this generation. So what we got to do is we got to strive that much harder to reach out to the youth, because it's crazy. Now we live in a time, like I said, the message has changed, a detachment from a lot of the black leadership that you seen prevalent in the culture, in the music. We don't see that like that no. What was happening is the one dimensionality. We know crime was always pervasive in our communities, but that more so one dimensionality of lifestyles that a lot of people turn to for survival is being turned to for glamour. And the impact that it's having, sociologically speaking and psychologically speaking, when somebody is seeing some, especially the youth, specifically the youth who are very impressionable, right? Who are attracted by little shiny things. What I mean by that, cars, riches, you know, what appears to be power, some measure of power, connections, respect. All these things are things that it's only in your human nature to want. But coming from communities where you're not respected in society for the most part, as a group anyway, not saying no individuals, hey man, that's not my story. Yeah, you have that, but talking about a group, because it's not about an individual. As a nationalist, I talk about national things that affect the people as a nation, as a national, not individuals, not clusters, not groups, not cliques, not individuals. So I try to highlight things that are relevant and prevalent that are pertaining to us on a collective level. You see what I'm saying? And why we are so glorifying. They're getting our youth more so to glorify that which is destructive to us, because they understand the psychology of music, beat, rhythm, sound, color, image, motion. When you're constantly seeing these things perpetuated before you, you're constantly hearing it. There's a rhythmic hypnosis that comes out of that. A rhythmic hypnosis means everybody, or a lot of people at one time, being influenced by the same concepts or ideas. Masses of people, groups of people, or demographics at one time being impacted, inspired, affected, what have you, by a certain concept or idea. You know what I mean? So them knowing that, and then you're seeing at the end of that is success, or the perception of success or empowerment through material wealth, which is only natural for people to want. But and when you really analyze it, the agenda behind, that's right, agenda, behind a lot of these things is to further marginalize, depopulate, and eventually eliminate you from the American social order. You're an unwanted eater, black man, black woman. So that's why the worst, because all people have good, bad, degenerates, successful people, great people, bad people amongst them. But why is it amongst us where they say 1 out of every 3 black person is caught up? And I don't know that, and that's a statistic that's even questionable and argumentative, and I'm saying, up for debate. 1 out of every 3rd. Why does it seem like more is focused on the minority than the majority of success? If 1 out of every 3rd is caught up in the legal system or some phase of connection with the legal system, right? Whether it's parole, probation, have been locked up or what have you, or have a record or have a conviction, you know what I'm saying? Then why not focus on the other portion that is not? That means the majority of us aren't that. If 1 out of every 30, you know what I'm saying, or 1 out of every 4 is caught up in that, you know what I'm saying? Why not focus on the positive? What impact would that have on a community that is dealing with these social issues, that are dealing with these social ills, if more was promoted positive about them? If more was promoted about all these young black inventors you see going into business, producing a generation of some prodigies, why isn't that perpetuated more? Young black people with the highest IQ, Romani Wilfred scored 116, I believe, which was higher than Steve Hawkins, which was higher than Bill Gates, which was higher than Albert Einstein. At the time when he did, he was only 12, 13 years old, from England. And 2 other great black kids, I don't remember the 2 beautiful children's name off the top of the head, were among some of the smartest children in the world. You know what this would do to be perpetuated amongst us? More to us, if rap songs about that kind of greatness was out, with some hard beats. You see what I'm saying? All the great black people that are coming up with inventions. The number one biggest inventors in Africa right now, group-wise speaking, are black women. A lot of them from Nigeria. Imagine if more was promoted about that, if there was movies about that, if there was reality shows about that, to contrast and add an antithesis to Atlanta Housewives, or to Love and Hip Hop, or to the destructive music that we see perpetuating, and a lot of the black on black crime that we see have gone just from the recording studio really into street life, claiming the lives of a lot of our young misguided soldiers and warriors in the streets. Imagine if more songs were made about our greatness, and there's more of our greatness than there is our destruction. There's more of us that are great, doing great things, that are producing great things, that are planning for great things, than there are us destroying ourselves. But the way the world would see it, because in order to assassinate, this is how the art of war works, socially, politically speaking, in order to make the assassination of a person or a people justifiable in the court of global and public opinion, you first have to destroy their image before the world. They have to be moralists. They have to be debased. The historicity of us being subhuman and prone to crime is deep within the fiber of American history. Those who control the images, we have some labels, but the record companies that give us incentive to rap about, to glorify, and to help us to romanticize that which is destroying us is all agenda oriented. You see what I'm saying? Now we can talk agenda. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't help to just eliminate the problem. But for the young brothers, sisters, people who have not tuned into Baba TV before, and if you haven't, this is your first time, definitely like, subscribe, support, and definitely share this video. But it's for y'all. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us, and I have to sidebar point, is definitely important. History is definitely important, definitely a key to the psychological development as far as pride and the desire for prosperity goes for people. That's why every culture has historic societies, monuments, museums, and repositories that contain so much of their cultural greatness and their historicity, and they should have that. A lot of us woke folk amongst us are over romantic or obsessed with ancient history because we've been cut off from that and written out of any respectable commentary, especially in recent history. Recent history meaning the last 500 years. Our history is so vast, it goes way before that. But we've been written out of any respectable commentary with all our greatnesses and all our achievements have been written out of any respectable commentary. And what has been imbued in the minds of us, in the minds of society, and in the minds of the world at large is the criminal, subhuman, sex-hungry, sex-crazed, beast-like, unreformable, thief-like, criminal-minded black person, to the point where a lot of us have internalized that because it's been so imbued in us in systematic realities that have been engineered and blueprinted for us. We have fell into generations of these cycles. So a lot of us who are born into that is all they see. They don't see it from a broad scope. They don't see it from the outside looking in. They don't see it from outside of the range of what they just see it as from what they were born into, and what they see is just tangible reality. All that shit you talking is deep. Sankofa, yeah, but niggas still gotta eat, and I still got smoke with these niggas down the street. And the niggas run up on me with the bullshit, nigga, it's on and popping. All that black power shit, I hear all that history, and that's how I think. See, a lot of people are so caught up with ancient Egypt, which is great. I love the historicity of Africa, which is more vast than just Egypt. But the Nile Valley civilization is one of the greatest, period, hands down. And I am very appreciative towards the history of ancient Kemet, right? But I'm not obsessed with it. I would say my obsession, if I would call it that, would be with the resurrection, the empowerment, and the advancement of Blacks in real time today, and with solution orientation that deals with the problem orientation that we're dealing with. We have to counter present day problems, present day military and political and economic stratagems designed against us with present day and futuristic thinking long term, blueprinting now, you know what I'm saying? Objectives that is going to counter that which we're already and inevitably and have been facing. Now, inspiring people with our greatness of ancient civilization is definitely important. But I don't think, unless, and I'm all for it, anybody can bring solution orientation from ancient 10,000 years ago, inspiration into the forefront that would help us. The people that you can reach with it is definitely powerful. But what we need to start to do now is to strategize, organize, because our youth is dying. And if the youth is the future of every people, there's a reason why the youth is being targeted more than anything. And why this generation of the youth, right, is one of the most lost generations. And if they're becoming one of the most lost generations, what are the ominous implications, sociologically speaking, of the generation they're going to produce and the generation they're going to produce after them? Little historical fact. It was between 1950 and 1970, $4 billion, $4 billion worth of wealth was stolen from black families on the south side of Chicago. And this was by way of an anti-black racist mortgage policy known as contract buying. In other places, they did subprime lending, which basically put people in the debt. And it was a practice that they did because they know that equity and home ownership is really how you build credit and is the foundation of wealth. So yeah, they gave you access to it, but they also had underhanded strategies and games to play you out of really obtaining that. These are things that they did. And what they did to undermine the wealth, 4 billion from 1950 to 1970, right? Contract buying, look it up in Chicago. And this is done in many cities. I'm using them because this is a city that we see being spoken about in real time. You see in mainstream media, one of the most. The same areas that were undermined and that were robbed of $4 billion in a 20-year time span, 1950 to 1970, that were working class people. Chicago's always had its issues. Strong, intelligent, educated black people striving for improvement, right? Generations up from slavery. With this being done, furthered the wealth gap, increased poverty, depression, and the need for survival, which produced black on black crime, right? And in these same areas that were robbed are the same areas in the south side, the west side, that are some of the most dangerous, blighted, and violent neighborhoods in the country. These are the things that they've done all around stuff like this to create the conditions that became the conditions that we relish and popularize in our music. One thing about us and our creativity as a people, our music have always reflected. Our music have always reflected our condition. Slavery, after slavery, the blues. We had jazz, or our conditions, right? Because we are multifaceted people. Jazz, blues, gospel, a lot of the things, we was like the soundtrack really to American history. Black people and our song and our dance, even entertaining my song on the damn plantation at one time. You see what I'm saying? So the music has always reflect our conditions, the conditions that we see ourselves in and that we are products of, right? And survivors of, many of us. Shit, speaking for myself, coming from the mean streets of Boston that I come from, you know what I'm saying? Right? Us being, let me get a little water. Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? us being products of the traditions and the conditions that we come from have always reflected that in our music. Now that the social dynamics of the realities that were created for us, right? From the crack era, which I just read, and you can go into 1997 and see what Oliver North, right? The Oliver North trial, look it up, which was publicized back in the day. And he talks about how the CIA in a covert war, you know what I'm saying, against the Sandinistas of Nicaragua, financed that war, and to a great extent by putting, without the consent of Congress, by putting crack cocaine, tons of it, on the streets of America. First got there through a person by the name of Rick Ross. Not the rapper Rick Ross, Ricky Rose, but the original Rick Ross, which to some people is old news, but it's news nonetheless that's pertinent to the topic of Ghettocidal. You see what I'm saying? And by them putting that on the streets of America, but basically they admitted that they put that on the streets. And when you see that hit the streets, you've seen crime, such as homicide, right? Just violent crime in general, robberies, assaults, you know what I mean? Rape even, because degeneracy came out of that. So even if you wasn't using a drug or selling a drug, you was affected by it because your community changed. So a lot of distress, fear, and other issues came from people who wasn't even users or suppliers of the damn drug itself. Just in the community that you were in, you were a victim. You might get hit in the crossfire. You might get stuck up and robbed because somebody got to get high. And you coming from work with that bag, and they got to get into that bag. You know what I'm saying? So these become regular norms in a lot of our communities. And what a lot of that became, a lot of us who always had cliques, crews, and posses, and have been neighborhood people, we're tribal people, you know what I'm saying? So we've always had cliques and groups. Some of us used to fight each other over different neighborhood stuff and what street you was from and all that. Back in the, there was a time where it was just brass knuckles and maybe a blade and anything. You might have had a revolver. But then out of nowhere, crack hit the streets, military grade weapons that was never in the inner cities just hit the streets. There was a whole iron pipeline of guns just hitting the streets of America. With that, the increase of the prison population, which went from, I think, 400,000 blacks that were in prison now, or probably less, to right now, where we make up close to 80% of the prison population since 1986, right? And more of us are in prison as a result of certain things that were done, blueprinted and organized by intelligence apparatuses of this government. As a result of what happened, we see more of us in prison now than were in slavery in 1850. There are more black people in prison now than there were in slavery in 1850. Remember, the 13th Amendment said slavery was outlawed. It was illegal. Forced servitude or slavery, right, was illegal unless one was convicted of a crime. So the conviction rates that you see in the community started back in the community. They started convict leasing. So convict leasing was this. There wasn't big industrial prisons after the Emancipation Proclamation, but there was still people that had land that had to be tended to. Plantations, where you plant things and it grows, a plantation. You know, so what did you do? These people are free. You criminalize them, make them to face a crime and deprive them of equality. And they're going to do what it has to do what they have to do to survive. And if they have nowhere to go, because you was emancipated, you wasn't made free, you were set free. You wasn't made free, you were set free. Made free, meaning you wasn't given reparations, economic repair for that which you suffered for centuries of free servitude. You wasn't given land. Some of us were given some states, but the good old boy network took that back. That's another topic we can go into. We didn't have land to develop, prosper, and grow as a community off of. It takes some time, you know what I mean? So no. So when we were just free out of slavery, we went from being a slave to being a poor, many of us vagabonds, beggars, and people who are desperate to do what they had to do to survive. We were basically criminalized. That was done on purpose. You don't make a person who's a former slave and give them full equality. Now they have the right to vote, the right to bear arms, the right to the free market in competition with you. And at the time, you got to look at, there were a lot of slaves here. There wasn't as many whites as they were here now. That wasn't until a lot of the immigrant class started to come. So they made sure they had to put and ensure laws that let us go from legal slavery, which was abolished, illegal, and it was made illegal, to legal slavery. Legal slavery was called convict leasing. Now legal slavery is called mass incarceration, which was on an uptick in 1994 with the crime bill in the Bill Clinton administration that was written by Joe Biden, your current president, Uncle Joe, for the Uncle Toms that love him so. You know what I'm saying? He was like the second coming of Christ to a lot of you people. Just signed an executive order, sidebar, giving $4 billion to see what the root causes for immigration, crime, and a lot of these things that you see affecting America, specifically from the Latino population, is what they said in the executive orders. $4 billion to go towards assisting and helping to contribute to the improvement and betterment and sustainability of the Latino brothers and sisters. But here it is, he even acknowledged that, 87%, a whopping 87% of the Democratic vote for Biden was as a result of the African-American population here. He acknowledged that when he was first announced as president-elect back in November. But everybody else, he's still, dodging your calls. You know what I mean? He even admitted, I'm not going to just do nothing for black people. It's un-American, it's constitutional to just do something for one group of people. Unless, of course, you're not black. You know what I'm saying? So, like, these are just the different things we got to look at and put into perspective, along with the fratricidal homicide, black on black crime, along with a lot of the degeneracy we see in our communities and dysfunctionality amongst us. Mental health issues is a big elephant in the room that we don't talk about. That will cover a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but definitely that does need to be addressed. Fratricidal homicide. You know what I'm saying? What else did I say? You know what I'm saying? Mental health issues or dysfunction. You know what I'm saying? With us mixing outside of our race, with the high incarceration rate, and just other different factions, suicide rate is very high. Suicide rate, you didn't see us killing ourselves at the rate that we are and have been in recent times. There are reasons and answers to that. Psychologically, sociologically, politically, economically, and even spiritually. But however, there were reasons behind these things, and these things were socially engineered for it to be this way. You know what I'm saying? So with all the death, the decadence, the stress, the struggle, the beef, the smoke, the losses, the candles, the teddy bears, the police sirens blaring, the gunshots flaring, that are regular fixtures in our community, of course, images that are probably not the best appealing or the best representation of us as a whole, but is the most prevalent representation. The fast thought black woman, the criminal-minded black man, the materialistic, selfish, you know what I'm saying, self-absorbed, you know what I mean, black person. Yeah, these elements exist in our community. That's right, they exist in all communities. But why is this being perpetuated more so for us? Because out of the death, the decadence, and the systematic realities that you see as being products of, this is appealing to the youth. This is a way out to many. Many of them ain't got no trade or interested in it. Or if they are, they see hip hop as a way out. But the most prevalent type of hip hop, or because it's a hip hop is multifaceted once again, the main dimension of hip hop that they use to facilitate a desire for bloodlust and self-destruction, for wealth and power and respect, is the criminal element or the whorish element of the hip hop genre of music. You know what I'm saying? And the target is the minds of our kids. And with all the other dynamics that we're facing, with the self-destruction, with the degeneracy, with the other people and immigrants coming in and steadily coming in more, there were a time we were the majority minority group. There was a time when we was the majority minority group, right? We're not that now. Now we're becoming a minority. We're number 3, I think, number 2. The Latinos are the number 1 majority group now. You see what I'm saying? And many incentives are given to them. Not all. Shout out to my Pan-African minded, or if not that, just revolutionary minded supporters and lovers of themselves, especially those of African descent who know who they are and know what truth is. Much definitely shout out to y'all. But however, we got to speak truth in where it exists on levels outside of just the few and far in between that happen to be woke. You see what I'm saying? That are giving incentives to claim to be honorary whites in this system and detach themselves from us and our struggles. You see what I'm saying? And not see ourselves as a collective community. A lot of them are coming here and advancing and giving incentive not to deal with us or share with us. One thing I can say is they have a lot more unity than the African American. At this point, there was a time we had a lot of unity as a people, a lot more than we've had over the last damn 50 years, I can say at least. But a lot of people who are coming here, Asians of different tribes of Asians, Koreans, Chinese, and executive orders are being signed to facilitate economic, political, and academic and so forth incentives to ensure their prosperity as minority groups of people when we are still given nothing. The wealth gap is steadily broadening for us, right? And now we're not even the majority minority group. We are overlooked. We are disunified. We are relishing our own destructive, not all, but enough that we even having this conversation today. Enough where these are things that we see highlighted in television. Enough where we're sick and tired of the things that we see in our community in there amongst ourselves for the most part, right? We have to consider all these things and what are the ominous implications, long-term speaking, of what's to come out of this. It's entertainment now, but it's niggas and the fossils being fossils in a museum 50 to 100 years from now. If you understand sociology and you understand where we're at, what's going on in the world around us, we're living in a serious political and social paradigm shift. The world around us is advancing and changing, and as individuals and as groups, we're great. More black millionaires, billionaires, educated people more than ever. One thing we don't have is a sense of unity and a collective objective. There is no black plebiscite. There is no black referendum for an agenda. And because of that, we're begging others to sign executive orders to give us that which we need to first start to facilitate and provide in and amongst ourselves as a people now, so we can level or levy whatever executive orders, if they were to be signed, to our advantage. These are the things that need to be done. For all my hip hop heads out there that are revolutionary rappers, to counter the negative, right? Because we were born into this fight and this plight, keep banging with this dope music. Shout out to Kim. Shout out to United Front. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Ned Prez. Shout out to a lot of the groups out there, the revolutionary rappers, entertainments, those who I don't even know yet. I can't wait to hear from you. And we're going to make this get popping because we got the talent, we got the fire, we got the knowledge, and knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone, like KRS-One's name is. And when you start to do this, and our voice is the voice of the world, the black man's struggle in America and the music we produce is the soundtrack of this country and the world. But we got to stop allowing others to dictate and perpetuate the narrative, the majority of the narrative of the dimensions of that are being perpetuated, just the crime dimension or that element. We have to start to become more business oriented, business minded. They don't want you to become in power, own your and start your own, you know what I'm saying? Your own marketing and publishing and record companies like that. There was a couple of years back, right, Baba? And to the viewing audience, I believe it was what was it? Jay Prince from Rap-A-Lot Records, right? You had Irv Gotti, right? You had Suge Knight, and who was the other brother? I forget. Anyway, they all wanted to come together. It's about 5-6 years ago and start their own independent, you know what I'm saying, marketing distribution type of company. And you know, they want to put, these are moguls. These people know the business. They've been around for years. They're from the streets and they know the politics of hip hop. And it seemed like since they tried to do that, that got intercepted. Didn't get a lot of news coverage because truth isn't popular. People might see that for what it was. You know what I mean? Now, what happened was they had FBI was all on them. All of them had cases brought up. Irv Gotti, the cases, had to go to court for his trial. Suge Knight fell, went to jail. I mean, there's just so much stuff that was going on. Jay Prince was being investigated by the feds to the point where they were so caught up in trying to deal with those situations, it compromised their attention focus to be able to strategize something that would create better jobs, opportunity, wealth, and greater examples of Black empowerment by controlling our music and the distribution of that. So this is not to sit there and cry oppression. This is to, like a doctor, when you go to the hospital, you have to get a checkup to see what's causing the illness. We know that as a body or as a community or as a people, we have a lot of illnesses. And when you go to the doctor and they examine the anatomy of the sickness and the root causes of the sickness, you have to deal with that, understanding what caused the sickness, where the sickness comes from, and the anatomy of the sickness in order for you to prescribe a proper antidote in order to heal or to further prevent the disease or dis-ease from continually eradicating or destroying the body, and in this case, the people. We are our own problem a lot of times, but most importantly, we are also our greatest solution. A lot of the resources that we need, right, are right amongst us. Intellects, millionaires, warriors, creators, doctors. We have this in all aspects. We can become an independent people. But we're not thinking as an independent people. We're thinking as individuals. And ever since integration, because there was a time when we had to depend on it. We always had our issues, and it was always divisive, when no group of people is a monolithic people, by the way. But it seemed like after integration and classism amongst us, more separation. A lot of people got theirs, and I'm just an American. I'm not Black, I'm just an American. Shit, I'm not Black, I'm OJ. Like what OJ said. A lot of people had that mentality. And so that means as much more education as a lot of us was having access to, right? Access to wealth and capital, more millionaires, billionaires even, property owners and places of politics and just different aspects where you didn't see us as when we were segregated us prior to Brown versus the Board of Education and integration, right? As a collective, we were producing more, but now that we have more successful individuals or groups, but as a group, we're less successful. So a lot of us see the illusion of empowerment, prosperity, and even inclusion by proxy of the fact that certain people are taking from our communities and put in positions and giving power and giving wealth and giving these titles and these, you know, and what comes out of that is the idea that we're improving, we're prospering, not as a group, brother, not as a group, sister. The game is rigged. The game is rigged, and our minds are shackled to the fact a lot of times. So here it is, you have very intelligent Black people, academic and academia even, very intelligent, creative Black people who are damn stupid and retarded. Not to use inflamed and disrespectful words, but it's out of passion, and the passion is rooted really in love for the people, right? Who are very ignorant, a lot of times by choice, to the reality, socially speaking, of the world around them and how it affects us as a group. A lot of us have the individual and I got mine attitude opposed to a community. And if we don't have that community orientation, nationalism, when I say nationalism, once again, the root word is nation, an objective, an agenda, and goals that benefit the collective, regardless of land, label, religious belief, politics, or title. We'll work that out after. Other than that, we under the gun. God damn it, we under the scope. So we can work out our differences and all that. That's why we have tribes and we have different states. Once we set up our own. In the meantime, we got to get dealing with survival. advancement as a group. And we got to deal with our own internal destruction that a lot of our youth have been deceived into buying into and relishing as a lifestyle and loving and glamorizing and actually feeling that they got to fill this real nigga quota in the streets. Nigga look at you wrong, off with his head. You know what I'm saying? I got a little brother, my youngest brother. He's doing life in prison right now. You know what I'm saying? Love him, miss him, caught up in. I got cousins doing life in prison up in Boston. You know what I'm saying? One of them for, you know what I'm saying, being accused of a murder in a district attorney. Like a couple of decades ago, man, he's still down. Cousins locked up for double homicides, ain't never coming home. You know what I mean? So I've been affected. I've done time, even when I was woke at a young age. I didn't have life skills, didn't have understanding, and stupid to a lot of things. I'll be honest, I was still stupid. I was just passionate about info. I was a young man and still had a lure and an attraction to that street dynamic and that street element. What did that do? That put me in prison at the age of 17, got caught with a firearm coming from school. Just went back to school because I dropped out. Went to Job Corps, got into some fights, got kicked out. Tried to go back to the school, didn't have my mind right, passionate about the knowledge then. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to Timothy Lattis here, who said, rest in power to my Uncle Cash. Boston legend, sidebar, hip hop, graffiti, breakdancing, you name it. You know what I'm saying? One of the legends and luminaries of Boston hip hop, you know what I'm saying? History, definitely. Shout out to Uncle Cash. You know what I mean? But like being caught up and being affected by things that I've seen in the streets myself and being a part of the problem at one point, I was always passionate about this knowledge, about different schools of thought, history, especially psychology. I wanted to understand history. Then I wanted to understand the anatomy of how people think, why people think the way that they do, how the mind changes when it's inspired to, and how to make this work for myself and learn how to develop the skill set to inspire other people to do the same. That was my passion. And the consciousness definitely saved my life. So anybody who thinks just information is just information and doesn't have no impact, it does. And there are many of us that are examples of what truth, information, and knowing self does to heal, to resurrect, to break shackles, and to transform the mind and the soul of a person. You see what I'm saying? I grew up wild. Grandmother, see my grandmother shot, and well, they didn't see her get shot, but she was shot in the head, killed. Remember seeing her in a coffin at age 6. Uncle James died of a crack overdose when it first hit the streets back in '86. He was a pimp prior to that. Remember, I used to see him as a young kid. Damn, Uncle James, why your hand so swollen? Oh, man, because I be in the gym boxing with Muhammad Ali. I didn't know as a kid. That's what he was telling me as a kid. He was shooting all that dope up in his hands. His hands was all swollen up. My grandmother's brother. I'm only saying it to say this. You know, we come from some wild backgrounds, many of us. You know what I'm saying? A product of tenement building, Section 8 in the streets. That's what I was a product of as a young man. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna tell you this. That's what also makes us powerful and strong. That's what also makes us feared. With imagine like how once again George Jackson said in the book, one of my revolutionary spiritual fathers said that one of the greatest fears of this capitalist system is the criminal black mind becoming a revolutionary black mind. So when I tell people to stay dangerous, I mean stay getting your knowledge. You're less of a threat to yourself and more of a threat to your opposition and a greater benefit to yourself once you break the shackles or whatever stage that you're starting to get information on. Once you start that journey and start trekking on that journey to break shackles, and you have that attitude that I'm going to use my endowments of creativity, of intelligence, of being a warrior, and my greatness that's already genetically encoded into my black DNA to transcend the conditions and the traditions that were designed for me to fail in. Once we have that attitude, many of us, not all, because all ain't going to do that, enough of us internalize and act off of this mentality and mindset, we can make changes of epic proportions and only continually and perpetually inspire other youth to see that there's a way out besides niggerism and negativity, not just negativity. And that positivity is powerful. You can be positive and strong and a soldier and a warrior and stand up. Positive ain't nothing soft, weak, whack. But that's what they're perpetuating in the music. There was a time being positive and being a G and being in the crack era, and when hip hop first came, all kind of went hand in hand. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like being blind, dumb, all pilled up, tatted up, sexually confused, self-destructive, without a political agenda, objective, or worldview or nothing, is becoming to be made more enticing to us. And with the advent of so many different, and with the advent of social media and so many different apps and accesses to social media, is just a proliferation and a perpetuation, right? And a smorgasbord of more of the negativity amongst than the positivity. And that has a psychological impact on the youth. It's called rhythmatic hypnosis once again. You know what I'm saying? You put black girl, say you go into your search bar on YouTube, you put black girl T, say black girl teachers or black woman T for teachers. You put black woman, you might put T before teacher come up, twerk comes up, twerking comes up, or thought might come up. Because this is the more so of the perpetuation of our women. Our women are beautiful. Our women been through a lot. Our women are strong. So they know they have to go for the women who are the first teachers of the baby and destroy that image. And there's so much history we know about that and what it does. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta consider, and our women, right? The most educated group of people, of women in America, is black women, accomplishing great things, doing big things, getting businesses, doing so much. A mother and daughter, I just was reading down in, I believe it was in Texas, bought their black-owned gas station. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of these type of stories. Why isn't there any news coverage, rap songs about that? Why do when you hear about us in the media, it's always unsavory, negative, and criminal? We know why. It is for you to buy into that and to recycle the perpetuation of a mind state that we internalize our self-worthlessness, and therefore we have no value in our life. It's nothing for you to blow a nigga's head off because he looked at you wrong. You get props from that on the block. You got real nigga status. You that nigga, then you go in the studio and you spit because you really about that life. The shit you spitting is real. You ain't fronting. You ain't just rapping. A lot of us want to have that and wear that as a badge of honor. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been dealt a blow to the head that has rendered us mentally and spiritually dead. But it's up to those who awoke to resurrect us. We need all hands on deck. And like I said, ghettocidal is black people that are genocidal, homicidal, and suicidal. And not only that, that relish and glorify the attitude, the lifestyle, and the activities that are geared to our own demise. Ghetto-cide, black empowerment and liberation, you decide. That's what I wanted to talk about today. So Baba, if you have any questions, you know what I mean? I'm definitely open to continue the dialogue and going on and some questions if you have any. If not, you know, we'll see where the spirit moves us.
Brother Sankofa, I'm sitting here like everybody else drinking in this important message that you have to bring. I don't think I need to add anything on or add any confusion to, because like you said, our people go in so many different directions. We confused enough. And paying attention today seems to be a chore. So, and
I like that. That's it.
yeah, so when our people are attentive, paying attention to Brother Sankofa and others and stuff, I think that that's enough. We don't need any
Well,
too much anything to add on to that. If you want to keep teaching, brother, go right ahead.
okay, well, yeah, because I don't just want to monologue. I always like to include my brothers and consider. And thank you, my brother. You know what I'm saying? If I'm holding it down like that and it's just you know, just keep going on then. But you know, I did have a long day. I'm not gonna front. I had a very long day. Been up since like 3:45 in the morning. Got my workout in. Went to work. Freezing out here today too. You know, I thought the South was supposed to be a little because you know I'm in the South now. For those who don't know, little warmer than the north. It's got the temperatures like we're still up top.
It's
Freezing.
like 10 degrees up here today. That's normal.
Word. I'm sorry to hear. I'm sorry to hear that.
That's normal.
We was at least 20. We got y'all by 20 degrees, but damn, it was still cold. Especially when you're working outside. I do construction type work, so if you're working out in that cold, boy, it's brick. Got home, went over my notes.
Brother,
you know what I'm saying? Really get a chance to settle in, and I'm here with the people. It's a pleasure and an honor. I get a boost of the energy. The battery in my back is for the zeal for getting out here in front of Baba TV when I have the opportunity. I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk to the people and express that which I feel is critically important and which is on my mind. And once again, I definitely want to thank the viewership for tuning in. It's Friday. You could be out twerking. Putting that work in. I'm joking. Or just watching Netflix. You're tuning in to Baba TV. And we definitely appreciate your attention, your time, and your commitment to studying, to wanting to know truth, and to hearing knowledge that you can't just get in the mainstream media apparatuses. So definitely what makes this platform is important, what makes this platform relevant is the participation and the viewership of the people. So definitely the people, give yourself a strong black hand out there. Raise the fist up for yourself. You know what I'm saying? We love y'all here at Baba TV. And that's why the teachers and luminaries commit to coming out here talking about critical issues. Truth ain't popular. So if I'm going to be an unpopular nigga for being a truth bearer and a studier of the truth and one who applies it to make himself a better person, then I'll be that. That's the best kind of honorary. Dislike would be an honor to me, or unpopularity would be something I wear as a badge of honor if it's unpopular, if I'm unpopular for truth. If I'm unpopular for black liberation, if I'm unpopular because I'm ready to die for the upliftment of my people. You see what I'm saying? Probably gonna die for that. You know what I'm saying? Some people are just YouTube personalities. I don't even come on here all the time like that. You see what I'm saying? But when I do, it's real because what's in my heart, flaws and all, it's all real. I only study to empower myself, to improve myself, to be ye an example into the flock, to the other brothers. I learn from other people who've made transitions and changes in their life because we all fall short of the glory. We all have our issues. We all have our imperfections. Shit, we all have our deep-rooted, you know what I'm saying, insecurities along some lines, no matter what it is or how much confidence you may have along other lines. So we're all a work in progress. Each one teach one, stale, sharp, and stale. But in order to do that, you got to be real. You know what I mean? And on that note, I do want to close out. And I do want to say in closing, I love the people. I love us a lot of times more than we hate ourselves. I love you, black man, black woman in the street life who's struggling. Don't even know where you might even rest your head tonight. You know, don't know what tomorrow's looking like because it's bleak. You struggling, you trying to figure things out. There's people out here that love you like us, that we come on this platform to feed you knowledge that may inspire you, empower you, and to uplift you. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely. We have to be the counterbalance to that which is out there to inspire you to be perpetually negative and nigger-minded. So I represent the antithesis to that, and I'm a proud representative and will die standing on my feet 10 toes down as a representative for black upliftment and black empowerment. And with that being said, I want to say peace to the family. Stay woke, stay dangerous. Peace, love, and light, and black power to the family.
Black power, black power.
I get sick of these forums of you talking about what's done to us. The black man has to take a stand. We ain't gonna get out of this condition. The Bible says, arise, arise, awake, ye men of Zion. Shake yourself from the dust. You used to rule the earth. Now we groveling at some cracker's feet. And if your brother stands up and speaks bold and speaks of war with the enemy, you back off from him and run like a little sissy. I don't agree with that cheap language. Kind of damn cheap language. There is no special way to talk to the enemy. Or you got to be polite with the enemy. Well, you shouldn't talk about the Pope. What the hell is the Pope? He's not just the Pope of Rome. He's the goddamn punk of Rome. some faggot sitting up in the Vatican somewhere, fondling little boys and stuff. You don't know what's under that damn dress. You might find out that the Pope of Rome is Mother Superior. Give a damn about no Pope. Somebody has to pull down the idols, bust up the idols. The Pope is an idol. I'm not going to talk about Kennedy or Clinton, and I'm going to speak of them in such respectful terms. Mr. President, hell, this is the murderer of my people.
Guru Guru Bedde Mariwo Sai Mariwo Re Mariwo Guru Guru Bedde Mariwo Sai Mariwo Re Mariwo Guru Guru Bedde Mariwo Sai Mariwo Re Mariwo
Ukuru Bakuru Chibichiri Wachiche Wachibichiri Ukuru Bakuru